Hello, Senior Stoner fans. It's the Real Senior Stoner back at you for your dab of the day. Today is Monday. Hello, everybody. A little snow on the ground on the East Coast. Be safe out there. Let's get to the topic of the day. Be an interesting topic for most everybody on this one. Risk. And I'll say it again. Risk. One more time. Risk. That's right. Risk. Gambling. What is your risk tolerance? People have risk tolerance that differs based on what we're talking about. Let's go into some different angles on risk tolerance. If you're an investor, money, people always ask you, what's your risk tolerance? Are you in it for the long term, which means you have a higher risk tolerance? Are you in it for the short term, which means you really need to have your money now, can't lose it? Where are you in retirement? Are you at retirement now and you can't take risks to make more money? Or are you young and you have higher risk tolerance? I think maybe how much money you have also depends on how much risk you take with it. People who don't have money don't like to take risk with it. People who've lost money, had hard times getting money, have hard times with risk. My risk factor is extremely low because of the way I was brought up. I didn't have trust in my family, so it's very hard for me to trust anything and anyone. But let's go more to the point of what we deal with every day. Pain. That's right, pain. What are your risk factors in terms of what you're willing to do? Are you able or willing to go into a big city and get out of your car and walk 20 blocks and get back in your car and go home? There's a huge risk factor involved in doing that. We talked about holidays when they came and went, the risks to going out, even to dinner, what can happen to us, the fallback, the way we can have things happen. The snowball starts rolling and you can't stop it. That's risk. And that's looking at risk and analyzing risk and saying, wait, that's too much. What about the risk of walking your dog, hurting yourself? Well, now we get to where it's measurable. Well, you assess that and say, well, the risk of that isn't too great. I've been doing it every day. It's something I know about. So the risk might be very limited for me going a few blocks, walking the dog. But as you start to do things that are out of your normal routine, it gets out of your comfort zone, which makes the risk factor higher. With a higher risk factor, many of us are less likely to do things. Let's talk about medical decisions we have to make based on what doctors think. Remember, they don't know, they think. Tests and doctors are ways to gather information so you can further assess your situation. But the doctor says to you, I need you to take a test. Well, what's the test? Well, it's going to be a very painful test and it might really hurt you. Well, the risk of that test might be greater for you than the reward of whatever answer they're looking for. The risk of traveling to a foreign country to have a peach pit enema, and I'm not kidding, if something horrible's wrong with you, for that super miraculous procedure, that's a risk. That's a very high risk. But sometimes what happens is things change. I'm a low-risk individual when it comes to money, but I might be considered a high-risk individual when it comes to health because I'm desperate. I've been desperate so many times in my life from the pain prison I'm in that I've accepted deals with the devil. That's extremely high risk, and that is not the way I normally operate. But what happens is you get pushed and pushed and pushed and pounded and pushed, and you have no choice but to go in the direction of high risk in some cases. Some cases, the high risk move isn't even a decision you've made. It's lack of alternatives. So what happens when you're shoehorned or put into a high risk situation you didn't want to do? You got to ride it out. You got to ride it out, and it's going to come out whichever way it's going to come out. We hope for the best. A lot of these situations that turn into high risk situations are high reward situations. The test you're taking to determine if you have it will also determine if you don't. So it's a high risk thing to yield a result you're really wanting. The challenge is, what if you get the other result? Risk and reward. It's something that people have been talking about for eons. Risk and reward on the battlefield. Risk and reward in banking. Risk and reward in school. Risk and reward basically in sports and everything that you can think of. There's a risk factor, but it's weighed with the potential reward. If the reward is not great enough, the risk is not taken. Unless you're forced into something where you don't have the ability to make that decision. Risk tolerance, I believe, is something we're stuck with. The risk tolerance is possibly built in us from a very young age and will seep into everything we do. It can be business risk tolerance to make a deal. It could be life risk tolerance to have a relationship. It could be as simple as saying I love you to someone, wondering are they going to say I love you back, hoping they will. That's a risk. Anytime you put yourself out there, that's a risk. But the most important thing to remember is if you don't risk, you will not receive. You'll muddle along like a weeble. You'll weeble back and forth, left and right, front and back, but you won't make any movement. You'll make no headway. So the risk, unfortunately, is part of human life. The cavemen risked life every day because when they heard the boom, boom, boom of Tyrannosaurus Rex coming, they knew they could get eaten. That was high risk. For us, the boom, boom, boom is the relentless pain when it comes in the morning or when it doesn't let you alone at night. And the risk we take is, what do we do? What do we do? Do we take opiates? Look what they do to us. Do we use this type of medicine? Look how expensive it is. There's a risk with everything that we do. There's a risk with everything everyone does. So you have to be able to assess it. You have to be able to kind of capture the moment and say, well, is it worth it or not? It's not easy. I'm 62, and I've been fighting risk-reward all my 62 years. That's right. All my 62 years, I've been fighting to allow myself to take the risks for the reward. Unfortunately, the way I'm built, I don't do it too often. Oftentimes, I just kind of muddle along, and it is what it is. Recently, the last 4 or 5 years with my health, with my pain, I've risked more. Here's why. When the pain gets so bad that you can't make any other decision but, I need help, I need to get the pain away, oh my God, somehow, you're going to take a greater risk. There's no question. It's like saying yes to surgery. I shot back surgery so many different places, hoping, that somebody would say, Senior Stoner, we have a 80% chance we're going to take you out of pain. That's an 80% chance, 20% risk. That's not too bad, okay? Problem is the 20% really sucks. You can come out like this, you can come out unable to move, you can come out dead. All kinds of risks that can be put into a small amount of risk depending on how severe the situation is. So don't be fooled when somebody says to you, well, the risk factor is only 5%. 95% of the people make out just fine with this brain surgery. 5% of the people don't know their names afterwards and drool when they eat, but 95% of the time it's wonderful and I highly recommend it for you. Well, what's wrong with you? Well, you have an issue, you have a little twitch like this, you do, and it will stop it potentially. But if it doesn't stop it, it's either going to kill you or it's going to make you totally not there. That is the perfect example of risk-reward. That's a perfect example because there's a no-win situation. You want to live like this with the tick, or do you want to die? Or do you want to come out vegetable? In spinal work, in necks and lower backs, where nerves are involved, they make one promise. Ready for what the promise is the doctors make you? I can't promise you anything. That is what they say. They can't promise you anything. There are no promises. Other people like you have had this happen. Our averages are like this. Well, the percentages run like this. So they give you a risk assessment. There is no promise in medicine. You, or you with somebody who helps you, have to make the final determination based on the information you're given. The challenge today is there's so much information out there that you can overwhelm yourself with information. You can make it so risk and reward you can't even find because you're too busy looking at the situation because there's so much information. It's a very, very difficult thing to do, to make these decisions about ourselves. It's a lot easier to make the decision about a business deal. It's a lot easier to make the decision, well, do I get the tire fixed now or wait? It's a lot easier to make a decision about, well, do I fix the ceiling now or fix the basement? Well, it's a lot easier now when it's not your body. It's a lot easier when it's not your pain. Risk and reward. It's a serious topic. We all, every human being, deals with it. The challenge is how we deal with it. Cheers. Gonna get a hit on our Crimson Carta with a hybrid of Sour Animal. Cheers. What's a good at? I needed that. Bless you. Don't forget this topic, everyone. This could be an everyday use topic for most everybody out there. Risk versus reward. Good luck out there. It's the Real Senior Stoner. Cheers.